session to order, and appreciate your all's presence, and we're glad to have you. And got quite a few things to talk about on this list, and I'll go through the list and get feedback from you all. And then if you all have any requests, comments, we'll do that at the end, and then ask for any department heads or any staff requests or comments as well to work on. So if you all would join me in the pledge, and then I'd like to ask Ryan Pratt today to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do want to start our meeting by welcoming our new court, and I look forward to working with all of you. And we've had a very productive last 4 years, and I am very confident going forward that we can continue to have that type of production and doing what's best for our community, Scott County, Georgetown, Stanton Ground, Sayville, and all areas north, east, south, and west. We've got a lot of challenges, but we have a lot of opportunities, and I'm excited. Get up every day thinking about what we can do to help our community, and I know you all do the same. I want to welcome Rob Jones and Ryan Pratt to the court as well, and I look forward to working with you all and excited about what you all can bring to the court as well. So be open for any comments right now from anyone before we move forward. Can't believe it. All right. So first item of business that I wanted to discuss and confirm, I've sent emails out this week trying to make sure that we have everybody in attendance for a special work session. Good morning, Mr. Livingston. A special work session on January 17th at 6 o'clock. And the topic of that work session will be a formal presentation about the proposal from the Grant County Fiscal Court related to a possible regional detention center with Scott County and Grant County. And we'll go through a presentation. Judge Dills and members of the Fiscal Court from Grant County will be here, along with their county attorney, Stephen Bates, and their jailer as well, Mike, I think it's Wilson. They'll be here as well, and Jailer Broyles will be here. He's confirmed that he can be here. So we'll go through the presentation about the specifics, and then we'll try to have a Q&A session, and then have opportunity to take comment from anybody in the public as well. So that will be on January 17th, 6 o'clock, and next week we'll put out social media posts trying to share that to make sure people are aware. Any comments or questions related to that? Next, I do want to share a status report from FITS related to closure work being done at the landfill, and it's a positive report. WSB continues to make progress on final capping of Phase 1. All synthetic and geocomposite materials have been installed, and all of the Phase 1 area has been covered with 12 inches of soil. Approximately 15% of Phase 1 capping areas has been covered with 36 inches of soil, 3 feet of soil. WSB anticipates having the remainder of the Phase 1 capping covered with 36 inches of soil within the next 2 to 3 weeks, weather permitting. Once the placement of that soil is complete, WSB will begin building perimeter ditches and diversion ditches, followed by seeding and mulching the Phase 1 capping area. There's been a lot of work done there, and I just wanted to give everybody an update in regards to that process. Any questions or comments?
Judge, quick comment, and you and I already talked earlier when we saw the email, but, and we talked about it, Jared and I and yourself, like there's 3 phases. So
That's
this
my
is phase
understanding.
1.
The third phase is long-term monitoring and,
So the second phase, I think, is another area of the landfill that's another sale or maybe sales. I don't remember how that goes. I was just wondering if, when you talk to Fitz again, which I figure you will probably pretty soon.
yeah.
If we could,
They've been really good about reporting to us, too.
Right.
So I feel confident things are moving the right
oh,
direction.
I do too, but
I'll ask
I'm just
Jared
wondering.
to try to get a clarification on the parameters
What's
of
next?
what phase 2 is.
And what, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you,
And I'll
Yes.
send that out.
thank you.
And Judge, on the monitoring, like, I remember the city, on the old sales that we used to have, on Double Culvert, the city had to pay money for like the electric and to monitor those things, and then from time to time, we have to pay people to pump out the leachate collection areas. Is, that all falls on WSB? and-
Yes, that's right.
Until there's a certain amount of time that there's not any leachate collecting, I believe.
But my understanding that there'll be leachate for like 20 years.
Oh, yeah, I'd say,
Yeah.
not longer.
Judge, I got a question.
David Livingston,
Are they,
is your button on?
it's the, I'm sorry. Are they allowed to put additional, containment collection generators out there? Do you know?
I don't know, but I can try to find out.
I'm just curious. I mean,
yeah.
it wouldn't, I don't think it would be a negative effect. I just didn't know if they were allowed to
Yeah.
expand
Jared,
on what they had already started.
Will you add that? That's probably a WSB Toyota question, so. But we'll,
I didn't know if they were legally allowed
Yeah.
to do it.
Well, to add to that, just to maybe get clarification, because I'm pretty sure they've got 2 generators installed, and I think they have been working, but I'm not,
That's still ongoing.
right. Well,
The only
but
decision
I think
was
that's a good,
Not to accept waste anymore, so they're still allowed to use it's called under Green City with Toyota, so that's still,
And-
they're still using that methane.
yeah, and that's a good question from David.
That's a good
because
product.
It's looking at the long term, though. What are they allowed to do, and what's that look like being monitored through the whole
so
process?
can you add that to your inquiry? Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Judge.
right, yes, sir. Any other questions? We'll go now. Had well, not an email, but a good old snail mail letter that was submitted from the City of Stamping Ground. And I'll just, read the basics. The City of Stamping Ground is formally requesting that the code enforcement interlocal agreement be amended to provide that the City of Stamping Ground's allocated share be moved from 5% to 2%, 2.5%. And, I shared this with you all via email. The City of Georgetown has received this as well. And I just wanted to ask you all for your feedback and, get some feedback about and direction about which way you all want to move forward on that.
I have a question. Code enforcement falls under the rule of the city, is that correct?
The city manages code enforcement
Okay,
through the interlocal.
so we fund it.
We fund 45%, they fund 45%, Sadieville 5%, and Stamping Ground 5%. Now, that's for the operating costs. For any abatements inside the city limits of Georgetown, the city limits of Sadieville or Stamping Ground, those cities pay for those costs. We pay for any abatement outside of those areas in the county.
Okay.
Okay.
So, didn't they lay out the numbers?
Do you have, Rick, are you on?
No. Was. Sorry. Thank you, Judge. What were their numbers again?
Are you talking about, in the last 2 years, Stamping Ground has been invoiced $21,176.02, or approximately $10,588 per year.
And I'm assuming then that that's their portion of the operating costs, not any kind of abatement.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify
Yeah.
that. And then their other option is they would just drop out, withdraw. If,
They indicated that they would prefer, it sounds like they would prefer to go the route of the reduction.
sure.
But request consideration, and an alternative would be to withdraw from the agreement altogether.
So if the court were to say, okay, we're good with the reduction, wouldn't the city have to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And then also even.
I think Sadieville would have to,
Yeah.
it's a,
Which they would probably ask for the same thing, obviously.
I don't think it would be equitable
Right.
for one entity not to have a comparable agreement.
I've got a suggestion. If we do consider, or if they just withdraw, they say they want out and they withdraw, it's obviously not a good choice to not have code enforcement, because you've got the laws on the books, so you have to enforce them some way. So at some point, if the conversation goes a lot deeper than just this one aspect. But, at that point in time, I guess another suggestion would be to contract with them, charge them mileage, time, charge them just for everything that it costs for somebody to go out there. If we have to make a visit, code enforcement has to make a visit. But I guess that's kind of a,
Well, that was
So I called Seth Johnson with code enforcement, and I said, Seth, can you give me just a overview of activities that have taken place in that area code and that over the last year or such? And I'm just going to read to you all the letter that Seth sent me this morning. The following is a list quickly generated from CityWorks, a utility reporting software code enforcement uses. CityWorks was implemented in August 17. Any case before then would require extensive research. Additionally, not all cases are simply one-time visit. Once a case is generated, our enforcement officers may be required to visit the location multiple times before compliance is obtained. Furthermore, please keep in mind every case does not warrant a notice of violation or citation, and therefore a case is not generated inside of CityWorks. Examples include a phone call, in-person visits, a door hanger left on site, etc. CityWorks currently, inside of CityWorks, currently there are approximately 80 cases within the 40379 zip code that are either opened or closed. Some cases inside CityWorks that our team put extensive work into day and night would include 3160 Main Street, lots, several lots there at the trailer park. These lots were condemned by this office along with facilitation of cleanup, placement of displaced individuals, and process of resetting trailers, which required state inspection and approval. The old Stamping Ground grocery store, facilitation of cleanup and maintenance. This work was completed outside of CityWorks at the request of Mayor Murphy. Recently, the Dollar General store, numerous citizen complaints led officers to the site. Officers escalated violations to the Kentucky Department of OSHA in cooperation with the state fire marshals. This issue was resolved without having to close the store. The list above is just a snapshot of work that's been completed. Currently, we have dozens of ongoing cases or violations that are in early stages of obtaining compliance. Some of these cases were brought to the attention of the mayor, in which we were told to wait until further notice before initiating a case. So they said they would be happy to provide any additional information. That's just a
and that,
it just was a quick update.
the original letter came from the interim mayor.
The original letter was signed by Bill Swartz.
Which was the interim mayor
Yes.
at the time.
Yes.
And then, so with the new mayor, Mayor Murphy, have you talked with him? I have not.
I have not talked with him.
I didn't know if any of that feeling has
Yeah.
changed. You got a new commission down there. I'm just wondering if they want to take a new look.
If I could speak on this, I asked for that letter to be wrote while I was on the commission. And the reason being is there's a lot of things that aren't being followed through the interlocal agreement. The city of Stamping Ground is supposed to receive a budget from the staff, so we know what to budget at the city level. We never got those budgets, so we would never know what our part was gonna be for the year. So it's kinda hard to budget, because when this agreement was wrote, my wife was the mayor then, and it was not supposed to exceed like $6,000 for our share. Now we're up to almost $12,000 a year. So it seems like it just keeps growing and the city doesn't know what to budget for it. So that's one of the main concerns right there. Because you got a very small budget in Stamping Ground to work with, so you try to save every nickel you can. That's the reason we asked that, are we getting what we should be out of the money we're paying? I don't think the city really wants to be out of it. It's just that they want to be informed to what they should be spending.
Okay. So do you believe if in my mind, once a draft budget was generated from the city, because they're the managing partner, the draft budget should be shared with the county, Sadieville Stamping Ground by X date, and maybe provide feedback, from there. If we navigated that, would that make? Do you feel like the concerns might be help? That might be.
I think that would help because the communication just doesn't seem to be there right now. The city doesn't know how many times they come down. There's no report ever given to the city. So the city of Stamping Ground never knew if it was getting what they were paying for.
That's a
So,
legitimate concern.
and when you only got a $700,000 budget and you take 12 out of it real quick, it's, the last bill, I remember the last bill we got was over $3,000.
So communication, maybe a monthly just activity report.
Yes. Which I think everything could be solved if the heads would just sit down and go over this whole thing again and maybe renegotiate anything that needs to be done.
Here's what I'll do. I'll reach out to Mayor Murphy and discuss what you've mentioned, and then see what next steps he might want to take, and then report back to the court.
Yeah.
How's that sound? All right.
One other question on the matter before. When did we enter into that agreement?
Right before Judge Lesby left, right before
So
Judge Covington.
5-6 years ago,
Yeah.
5 years, some 6. I was just wondering what Stamping Ground did before that. I know what the county did.
The city of Stamping Ground, Chuck Helmsley was our fire chief then, and he was authorized to do the code enforcement. But to do code enforcement, you have to have a lot of,
There's
I
a lot
don't know
of
what
to
you
do
call
it
it.
the right way.
but you have
They
to have
to
somebody
do-
to back you up like
Yeah,
Cam or
yeah,
somebody.
yeah.
It's
You
a
gotta
lot
have
to
a
it,
lot
you
of
know. It's-
correspondence, and you've
Yes.
got to have documentation.
Judge, legally, the appeals board, to me, is the most important part, because if the citizen disagrees, they need to have an avenue to appeal.
Exactly.
If you take that away, that kind of gets
Yeah.
legal. People have the right to appeal.
Yeah.
How long does that usually take when people appeal to resolve a situation? Do you have any idea?
No, not roughly, but I mean, usually it has to happen pretty quick, because, but the citizen needs to report on the front end, like within 7 days, if they dispute this activity.
Yeah. Well, been monitoring a situation that's been going on for 6 or 7 months.
But
Hopefully.
to me, that's the most important part of it, is the right to appeal.
Right. But it needs to be timely.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think that's stated in their initial letter that they sent out. But that's an important part to think about legally.
All right, any other questions or comments? This is good news. I'd like JR to step to the podium. He's got to wake up. But JR and I have worked with the property owner. We've talked with the state. And would you give an update on the tree removals and the activity that's going on out there on Long Lick?
Yes,
and that
sir.
curve that's been the site of many accidents and such.
Swartz Tree Service moved in Wednesday and started cleaning out the curve where the fatalities has happened and numerous wrecks on Long Lick Pike out there, and they're doing a wonderful job. We've got them out there again today, thanks to the state and everybody involved. And they should finish up today. They're gonna take about 400 to 500 foot of the inside of the curve out where you can see sight distance is gonna be great. Then I'll bring a contractor in with an excavator and dig all the stumps out. We'll taper the bank around. It's already, the sight distance is greatly improved.
So we navigate.
Maintain that. Who will mow it and all that?
Well,
It'll be a state,
It'll be a-
right away, they will mow, yes.
so that we navigated an agreement, the state paid for removal of all the trees and disposal down to hauling it all the way down to the reservoir
Yes.
property where we dispose of wood and debris.
Other than the stumps
And then JR's contracting with a guy to remove the stumps. Then JR's team will come in, do a little grading, in the spring, sow some seed, put a little,
Yeah.
and then move the fence back just
25 foot,
Yeah.
basically, in the apex
and
of the curve.
everything will be off that curve, whereas, there was huge trees right on the road, and it's just a bad situation.
And this is something that's needed to be done for years and years, and finally with our great leader, Judge
Well,
Cook.
Little honey
Made
goes
it
a
all
lot
together.
farther than vinegar, and we talked them. I mean, we just kept talking about it,
We
didn't we?
did.
And Kelly Baker, very helpful.
Very helpful.
Kelly Baker's very good to work with, and we're thankful for the collaboration and partnership, because I think that'll be a very positive thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So while you're there,
Yes, sir.
my next thing was just going to be a general, thank you and just, recognizing great work, your team, the road department, all of our first responders, fire, EMS, EMA, law enforcement, KU, those linemen.
Absolutely.
When it was that cold and the wind was blowing and all those things going on, we had great people out there taking care of people. And I wanted to ask you to just give us, you all worked many, many hours over the holiday weekend, and you were able to navigate getting the roads as clean as possible, and they could get home on Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Didn't have to come out on Christmas Day, right?
Absolutely, and that was a terrible way that hit. The freezing temperatures, 20 below zero, everything frozen ice. But we assembled like at midnight that night, and we were able to get on top of it, and we fought it pretty good. But it was a great team effort by everybody, and that just shows what teamwork does with everybody involved, Mike, FAR, Sheriff's Department, everybody, KU, like you said. And our roads were good on Christmas Eve when we went home.
I had, just a lot of positive feedback. And then I was going to ask Mike if he would come forward. And thank you, JR,
Yes, sir.
very
Thank
much.
you.
And, Mike, I was texting back and forth with Mike, trying to help by posting stuff on social media and sharing information. Mike was out there on the side of the road somewhere along with his team, and also trying to coordinate warming shelters. So I was going to ask you to talk about, that and the EMA response.
Right. So not only was it a holiday, but it was also part of my vacation. And somewhere about 6:30 Friday morning, I got a text message saying, vacation or not, you need to get your butt to work. Long story short, we had 12 jackknifed semis between I-64 and I-75. Those 12 resulted in 22 other stuck semis that had to be touched by heavy wreckers. Over 60 passenger vehicles that required a collision report, and that was just between 6:30 in the morning and 10 p.m. on the 23rd. We were able to transport 6 people with our vehicles to the gathering place for overnight shelter because they didn't have access to either electricity or water. We had 4 warming centers that were on standby If somebody needed something, we were ready to either get them to a place or send somebody to assist them. We never used any of those 4 warming centers, but I'm using that as a learning experience. I want to have sit-down meetings with the leadership from those 4 locations and figure out how to make them more accessible to the community, where people don't try to work their way through a bad situation. Just call us and say, hey, pipes froze at my house. I'm going to need to be out for 24 hours. What can we do? And one thing that came out of that never even dawned on me was putting a heat source into the 2 new tornado shelters that we're acquiring, one for Lyle Road and one for the Stamping Ground Trailer Park. If we put a small propane heater in there and could accommodate 150 people in each location with, it might not be super warm, but it'd be over 65.
No, it'd be warm.
Yeah. So that's something that we're going to accomplish. But, bottom line was, we had big struggles with the contractors from state roads keeping I-75 open. 75 southbound from 129 to 125 stayed frozen over for the entire time we were working. Somewhere between 4 and 6 p.m., all of our local record companies called into dispatch and said, either the trucks are out of service or we're out of service, call us back tomorrow morning. So it took our response time for a wrecker from 30 minutes up to 5 hours, because we were having to get Rick's out of Cynthia. I think it was Bargers out of Frankfurt. It was a real struggle. So that's something that we're going to use as a learning experience too. We need to figure out some way to standardize and put a little bit of more, I don't know how to say it, but when we call for a wrecker, we should be able to get it in a reasonable amount of time. That was a special day. I understand that everybody was working as hard as they could, but Candido's and Roberts dedicated 5 heavy wreckers to us for 24 hours, and they never stopped. They were pulling and pulling and yanking. I was really impressed with the way that they operated.
Mike, I got a question about that because I actually got a phone call about this. So let's say, I understand the wreckers are all being pulled out and going to these places, but if you contract out with Roberts or any place, Roberts pulls I wreck.
Yeah.
They pull my vehicle. The issue that I think could possibly be a problem is Roberts is going to take my vehicle to Lexington and not put it in a car lot here in Georgetown. Is there a way to remedy that situation for if I wreck my car, now I got to go to Lexington to pick it up?
At this time, there is not, but I am in process of trying to develop some sort of plan and some sort of SOP for Scott County so that will not be the case. If we have a Scott County record company, or right now we've got 5 on the rotation for law enforcement type wrecks. If you are registered as a business in Scott County, you should have to store in Scott County. The only exception to that would be tractor trailer wrecks, because we don't currently have a heavy wrecker system in Scott County. A&Z has kind of gotten out of the business. They contract with Roberts to assist them on the big things. So Roberts takes the tractor trailers back to their secure lot because they need to have access to that. They keep the truck until somebody pays the bill.
Sure.
And that's a big bill.
It's a big bill. It's $500 an hour to start the truck. I heard an estimate.
Just to start that big wrecker?
Yeah. When you call the company, it's $500, and then they come out on the road, charged by the mile, and whatever else. I heard an estimate that between Candido's and Roberts, they made over $200,000 in 24 hours. So it's something that we need to figure out. But our big concern all day long was trying to get wrecked vehicles out of the way, get roads reopened. The first incident that we responded to early on Friday morning was 2 jackknife semis on I-64 it was over 6 hours before those 2 trucks were removed from that. So we had 64 closed from Woodford to Fayette, and, same distance, both sides of the road for between 6 and 8 hours.
Well,
There
it's
there
just
should
a
be
big
something that we can
challenge,
do
so-
to expedite that.
Yeah, if you could work on that and come back at our next work session to give us, some more information, I think that'd be very valuable. Anything else you want to mention?
The other thing, Judge, is what happens if the electric goes off at the gathering place? Is there a plan in place?
That's something that, that was something that we dealt with late Friday evening with those scheduled rolling blackouts that nobody knew about. Found out that we don't have access to heat at the elementary school and stamping grounds, so coming up with a better idea for a warming center or whatever.
So if let's just say the gathering place had 50 people in there and they lost electricity,
We're coming up with a plan for that. It's
Okay.
something that we
All right.
didn't, it never dawned on us that if we put 4 warming centers and a overnight shelter together, that there was a possibility that we would lose 3 of those 5.
no. So I appreciate your work, and if you'll come back with an update the next work session, that'd be great. And then one other thing before you sit down, I have asked Mike and his team and Gina, they are putting together bid specs essentially for disaster debris clearance from roads to have set agreements. So if something happens, that time is not wasted, that we have these things in place.
Right.
And you all are working on that.
We're absolutely doing that. Right now, we have in place a debris management plan, but it's about 5 years since it's been updated. So we're going through line by line updating to make sure that that's in place. And then we will have a recommendation to the court to be able to go out to bid for at least 2 companies and have a requirement that they have to be available to us within a certain number of hours.
And that's kind of stems from the tornadoes and
Right.
and the flood and everything else.
It's not something that we would call just because we flooded in Stamping Ground on Tuesday, but, if we have hundreds or thousands of tons of green debris, houses, all that stuff that needs to be removed before we can start doing life safety stuff, then, as the judge said, we need to have a name and a phone number, mobilize this contract, and, let's start moving our stuff.
So that's something that,
Do you have 2 companies under contract, though? Because what if one gets hit by the
Well,
tornado
that's-
or disaster
Yeah.
as well?
Well, that's what I
Yeah.
would accept all of it.
That's what I was going to say,
Well,
Use who you need,
right.
who's available.
If we get a company that's not currently under state contract pricing, we're going to request that they get added to the state contract because we're going to do exactly that. Anybody that shows the capability of accomplishing the mission should be allowed to, to help out with that.
Have you talked with anybody from Graves or Warren or that were affected by the tornadoes
Yeah, we've talked to them at length.
or even not in Perry and?
Yeah,
Brandon
that's what I was
that were
going to say.
affected by the floods?
The Eastern Kentucky people
Yeah,
are.
That was a totally different scenario.
Yeah, Eastern Kentucky was incredible amounts of debris, and that's what got us started with this discussion. If we should have a 1997 flood for Scott County where we lose numerous houses, what are we going to do? We're just going to push that trash into the county park and hope for the best? So there will be a written plan with contracts in effect, and then reevaluate every 2 to 4 years, so that, company that can do it today, if you can't do it the next time, or if we have a major expansion of the request for debris, we make sure that we've got all of our ducks in a row ready to go.
thank you, Mike. I wanted to also ask John Ward and Chris to give us any update they'd like to share. John had several teams out doing water rescue, and Mike was involved as well. And, Chris, your all's team, you all still had to respond when it was 10 below, and if you all could just give us an update as well.
Yeah, Mike alluded to the fact the interstate, there were so many jackknife trucks and wrecks there, and of course, We had a really bad one on 64 there at the 69-mile marker. Young boy was seriously hurt. Last update I had, still in critical condition, and so we're waiting to see the final outcome of that. But we were busy, and it was bad. We got to when the roads get like that, we ask our folks to not even turn the lights and sirens on, just for safety. But it was challenging, for sure.
Appreciate what you all do as well.
Thank you, Judge.
Yeah. John?
Thank you. One of the things you all just discussed about the record service, we actually discussed this in our chiefs meeting yesterday, is I think we really need to look at this because we were going out numerous times to the same accident, because the record service wasn't able to get the vehicle out. The vehicle sits there. 2 hours, 6 hours later, somebody passes by it and sees it. So they're toning it out again for a possible vehicle accident. So it puts our guys in danger again, responding out on these conditions where if that vehicle would have been pulled out of there, we wouldn't have been responding to the same incident. So to me, that record service issue is a big, big thing. As far as the water-related incidents we had the other day, we had several swift water incidents, vehicles stuck in high water in the Sadeville area, Long Lick area. We actually got called to mutual aid in Paris. There was a school bus stuck with a bus of kids in it in Paris that they called us for mutual aid. We went over and assisted them on getting the kids out.
Which school district was that?
I'm not sure.
Bourbon.
Was it Bourbon?
So, no.
And I don't work with them.
So, and that's one thing I've been concentrating since I've been here is getting our guys the Swiftwater Tech class. I mean, to me, that's high priority for us. We just recently had 6 come back and got Swiftwater Tech certified. They're looking at putting another class on in March, so we'll be sending more. That's a big call that we go to, that we need guys trained at that type of level. It's not something you receive during your basic training. This is tech level training. So the training we've been getting our guys has become very important, and it's been very valuable, for them and the citizens that they're going out there to get.
John, I had a question because
Yes.
I had weird phone calls over this holiday, brought
Sure.
out all crazy stuff. So and I actually did this for one of my constituents. There was a water leak. Pipes thaw out. There's a water leak. I know that the city was going out and cutting the water off at the main for certain people.
Yeah.
Were you all doing that? I know that would be a low priority call, but was that a
Yes.
service that you all were doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, a lot of times we say when you ain't got nobody else to call, you call the fire department. Because we do go on a lot of type of calls such as that. And, that's why we're there. We're going out there to help them, assist them wherever, how we can. And if we can go out there and shut somebody's water off, we're going to do that.
Mostly doing sprinklers, though, right? The first call is sprinklers.
Yes, yeah, we've had several of those as well.
Yeah, appreciate what you all do, and really want to, just publicly acknowledge the job that was done, and we appreciate the service and the effort greatly.
Yeah, thank you all. Appreciate it.
So along those lines, one of the important things that people don't see is what goes on when there's weather or flooding, about communication between JR and the school system, and your all's team, when you're wearing the assistant superintendent hat, y'all are out, Josh True and the team's out early, but y'all are calling back and forth with JR. The other night at 10:30, 11 o'clock, JR was out making sure that the water had receded on those roads so that Josh and his team knew that everything was good and that we could have school. And just how important that is, that communication and collaboration, and we're blessed. I just wanted to point that out as well. Appreciate that. A lot of work goes in the background. And then talking about equipment, and glad that our deputy sheriff was not in the vehicle, but one Tahoe that was on the side of, was it 75? Was hit by a tractor trailer and totaled. We are already processing the insurance claim, but Sheriff Hampton's came to me and would like to make a request next week at court to approve a replacement. He would love to replace it with the exact same vehicle. That's not an option for 6 months. And they would like to, there is an option of a police pursuit vehicle. It's a Silverado crew cab. And, you know, we'll get a settlement because this was a brand new Tahoe. We'll let everybody know how much we're estimated to get back on that, plus the upfit money, how much we would get towards that. But the Silverado would be a crew cab, and his plan was to there's a Tahoe that our DARE officer has, and he would transition that Tahoe back to a road deputy, and then the DARE officer take the crew cab. So I'll get more specifics, but I wanted y'all to be aware that that'd be something we're going to bring next Friday, and Sheriff Hampton will bring it for conversation and discussion.
Well, Judge, just thinking through this a little bit, so the DARE officer is now going to get a truck. Let's just say this same situation happens in 6 months, a year from now, and now we're going to be looking for another vehicle, and the only thing we're going to be able to pull from would be a truck that we've replaced the SUV. You see what I'm saying? And so is that where we're going? Is we're going to have trucks out on doing patrol?
No, he wants the Tahoes for patrol. He thought this would be a suitable, it's still the police pursuit package. It's a Tahoe with 4. Mm-hmm. You could put an arrestee, in the back of the crew cab.
But you understand where I'm saying?
No, yeah.
I mean,
I'm just sharing the conversation. There are no Tahoes available. Yeah. There is this available.
So to get it, the turnover is where he thinks he
That leads to the budget question: is how many does the sheriff's department ask for this year, and will it take 6 months for those to come in?
I'm sure that'll be a conversation piece.
Mm-hmm. Just something to think about, Sheriff.
Yeah. The next thing, let's see here. We have board appointments that need to be addressed, and we've got a joint Parks and Rec. We have a reappointment. Airport board are both joint. Mike Cottle is willing to serve again, and I think he would be an excellent one. We need to check on the other airport one, but I think the city might have an applicant there as well, but those are joint. Parks and Rec was first, and it's a joint appointee. Then airport there's 2 positions, and both of those are joint, but one could be reappointed, I believe.
Okay, let's talk about that. So are they finishing their 2nd term, and this is going to be a reappointment for a 3rd term?
I'll have to look at the specifics.
Okay.
I think Cottle is.
Okay. Because
yeah.
if you remember, when we had that discussion about changing the airport ordinance on our interlocal to allow I think there's one person that we were going to put back for a 3rd term, where all our other boards have 2 terms and then they term out. We voted on that, and your comments were, we'll come back and revisit this. And so I don't want us to get back in this situation where all our other boards have 8 years max, and then here we are again.
Well,
that's Chad Wallace's personal opinion, but
it always is.
Well, but I don't think that's good government. I think if ever all the other boards have 2 terms and then they have to go off.
Well, I will look for specifics and we'll communicate.
And Chad, and I agree with you. I think 2 terms, because we had this discussion before, and I didn't go back and look, but I had a good applicant for the airport board that I need to look at.
Okay.
I'd send it to you.
Okay.
Maybe a year
All
ago,
right.
but, yeah.
The problem is, though, I mean, there aren't a lot of
So what I was going to, when I finished talking about this, Sandra Jean, our social media lady, is going to do graphics and post all of these several times in the next week or so to let people know about opportunities. And there will be a little application that they can fill out and submit. And that will help with that issue, because the truth is, it's sometimes you gotta go beg and plead for people to serve. Our Ethics Commission, has some, 3 positions that need to be filled. Our Code Enforcement, which is just on, the Code Enforcement Board is only if there is an appeal. That has 1 position. And then, coming up at the end of February, Planning Commission has 1 position, but it is the stamping ground seat. We need to check into that. All I'm doing today is just sharing information that there are some of these that need to go out.
I think at Stamping Ground, he can serve another
Can he
term.
be reappointed?
Yeah, he's only been on there for
And
4 years.
That would be great.
Yes.
So we'll double check, and if you have time,
I
could you
will.
check and
Yeah,
let
I'll
me
call.
know? Because that one's,
When's that need to be done?
2/28. And he's only served since I've been here, so.
Yeah, he's only been 1 term.
Yeah. And just to remind everybody on Planning Commission, Stamping Ground and Sadieville both have a seat that is, they send us 2 names, I believe, and then we go from there. So, just sharing that information with you all. Fire Department, 3 vacancies, posted positions, 4 vacancies, posted positions. And these have been posted for somewhat. Mr. Motorrat, could you tell us when those postings, the deadline to apply is?
The deadline is today for the experienced firefighter. It's next Friday for the recruit position.
Okay.
Of course, we may postpone filling the recruit position if we can hire enough experienced people. So
Have we had some experienced
we
applications?
have. We're up to 8 applicants right now for those 4 positions. So it's possible we may be able to hire enough experienced firefighters for those positions. We'll just have to see what happens. We
Well,
plan on
that's
doing
good.
interviews, not this next week, but the following week, the week of the Martin Luther King holiday.
All right. Any questions or comments?
I think we talked about this before COVID came around and probably dropped the ball on it, but I know in police work, retired police officers, but can come on board and they just work out their salary deal with a particular agency. There's no, I don't think there's any insurance. I don't think retirement. That's for someone who's retired. But that was a KRS from the state, just for them. And I think we've talked about it, but I kind of dropped the ball on it a few years ago now. Can that same thing be looked at?
I don't believe that would be a state, they'd have to, the legislature would have to adjust that.
That's right.
But,
No, I think they did.
Did
for
they?
fire,
I think they,
I don't think they did for fire.
I know that's been done for
I
police.
do remember the conversation.
Yeah.
But
Kind of
they
dropped
did
it.
not do anything at the state level.
I'll check with Philip Pratt and Damon.
Yeah, that would be, I think it'd be worth looking into again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a possibility to bring along some new applicants possibly.
It's probably too late for the January, but to be honest.
it's
Say
never
every
too
field-
late.
Maybe. Well, I mean, really just copy the one you get from the state, or the state police. I know they do that. I know cities use that a lot.
Right, right. And I think the sheriff's department's got, they can use it if they want as well.
Right.
I will check on it. Road department still has 2 vacancies for our trash crew, is that right, JR?
Yes, and 1 driver,
And 1 driver,
we got another retired here in a week.
so we're on that already.
Yeah, Mr. Butler's helped with getting applicants.
So the two trash folks we did hire are no longer with us. So we only had 2, right? We lost both of those.
Yeah. So, I'll see if Sandra Jean can help with like a road department graphic about job opening, and see if we can't promote that a little bit.
Judge, counting those 2, is that a total of 4 when, JR?
As of the 13th.
After a retirement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Retirement gonna be a mechanic? Retirement, a mechanic,
No, not
a driver?
a driver.
Okay. I spoke with Chris about EMS vacancies. We got 1 paramedic, 1 EMT, and then we know about Fire. Legacy Trail RFP. We received 2 architect responses. Those were graded out individually by a group yesterday. Kimberly Rice was with us. Kim has consolidated those, and the way, this is a little bit different because it's state and federal guidelines. Those, and Mr. Ellison's shaking his head, but those 2 will then, because of the number of applicants, those 2 essentially, we go to competitive negotiation. Is that correct, what she said?
Yes.
I think it doesn't matter how we score, you're really going to have to still go.
Correct. So I'm not gonna make any other comment. I'm just wanting y'all to know that the process is rolling, and I'm excited about that. Somehow, some way, we have not formally done a agreement for the farmers market architect services. Same thing. It's just a boilerplate agreement, but I'm going to bring that back to you all next Friday to approve. And I've met with Mayor Jenkins yesterday for 2 hours, and we talked about a variety of items. EMS station was one of them, but and then we talked about the farmers market pavilion. We talked about several things, and he's going to be getting feedback from the council and then getting back with me about specifics, and I'll share. And Andrew, I'm sorry, not Andrew, Cam is working, and we've talked with Andrew as well, but working on an interlocal agreement. I think I shared that about the pavilion, farmers market pavilion. And that'll be something that we'll bring to you all in the next month or so. And then broadband project update meeting is Tuesday, this coming Tuesday at 3:30, right here in the conference room. They're working as we speak. My goal, and Ben Ucelis, who is my contact with Charter, has been trying to get approval from the corporate level for them to share a map. Essentially, the map is the county divided up into 33 sections. That map will be color-coded. If it's green, it's where they're working now. If it's completed, it will be a certain color, and then where they're going next would be a color. And just as a graphic that I can share on a monthly basis with the community. So that's something we're going to talk about on Tuesday with him, and then just where they're at on progress and timelines. Of course, we can't have too many of you there, but if a couple of you wanted to come,
I'll be there.
and I think Dwayne said he would be there. So we'll share an update next week after that meeting.
Where are they right now?
They're out in the stamping ground area. They've been on Bonds Pike. They've been on Locust Fork. They've got 5 teams doing aerial work, and they have 3 teams that have been doing where they had to bury anything. They had 3 teams working. So that's an update on that, and then that leads us to any magistrate requests or comments about anything else.
I have a request.
Kelly.
So, something I was thinking about last year, in the spring, I started getting a lot of phone calls and emails about availability of Great Crossing fields. And I wonder if on our next workshop, we could put together something that I can hand out and say, here's who the leagues are we've invited to play, here's what our schedule looks like.
I'll give you an update. So I have moved forward with, on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, Parks and Recreation baseball, Parks and Recreation softball have 2 fields each from after school till, whenever they quit, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. On Monday nights, there's going to be a lottery for any travel team that wants to put in for Monday nights. And then from March to June 1st, Scott County Youth Baseball, Scott County Youth Softball are being given the opportunity and the priority to play on Saturdays at 2 fields each. And then
Except for a couple of
and thanks for pointing out, we scheduled the 2 high school softball teams have 2 weekends each during that March to June time to schedule tournaments. And then at the 1st of June, Tim is scheduling all the way to the end of October travel, like tournaments. And Scott County, I've met with Scott County Youth Baseball, Scott County Youth Softball together, along with Kim. They were this was very positively received. It's giving them more, of course, both of those entities said, is there any chance that we're going to do phase 2, the 4 other diamonds? And, I think this court would like to do that. It's just a budgetary consideration and looking at a big picture. But that's a conversation that we can have in February and March. Does that help you? And would you she's going to advertise just like she did last year, social media for any travel teams that want to.
No, I think that's great, and
Yeah.
if we can put that in writing,
Yeah.
so people call me or email me, I can
Yeah.
send them back and say, hey, here's what we've
Yeah.
done, you can see we've been pretty open about it.
Yeah.
And also,
the messaging's consistent.
right,
And
then as far as,
It becomes a notion that he's not talking with his league people.
no, that's right, and he's right, he's my constituent, calls me.
But I really think allowing our leagues to have access on Saturdays, March, and really they won't start till March 15th, and maybe later because of weather, but March through the 1st of June, they were very, they felt like it was very positive.
Right, and the other part of that is, I'd like to look at when we put that together and we look at potential future fields, how many Scott County kids are playing, or how many travel teams, and who we're building the fields for. So.
Well, I think part of that is you're building for the future as well. I mean, we're gonna be at 100,000 in the next 15 years. So you're not just building for travel teams right now, you're building for the future and the growth.
For leagues and.
Lexington did back in the day, they dropped the ball on their growth and what they should have done as far as building rec fields, and now they have problems because people say, not in my backyard.
Well, that's a great point.
Yeah.
And that's something I'd like to look at.
Yeah, the other thing too is if I'm not gonna say if, when we look at phase 2, I'd like for us to seriously talk about turf. Because if you build turf and you do dirt again, next thing you have to start hiring people to take care of those fields. And we have a hard enough time hiring people in professional emergency services. Can you imagine trying to hire someone that all they're going to do is take care of fields, part-time, seasonal? But if we do turf, there's a lot less maintenance, correct?
A lot less.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you still have to have maintenance, but you're not going to have the staff that you would to take care of those fields, because we can't expect the Parks and Rec, or the youth baseball and youth softball teams to take care of the fields, which they do now, and they do a great job. But the problem is they're still not kept up to where they should be, for the health and safety of all the kids. So turf would take care of a lot of that issue. And you'll have the
You save a little bit of money too, and people don't realize this, but you save some money by using turf, because you don't have to put in sprinkler systems.
Right.
And whatnot.
Fertilizer.
You might not have to go as far, as deep sometimes when you're, that's not an issue here, because you can already level off for us. But sometimes you save on having to take down a certain height. We save money by going to turf, and hopefully we save money.
Well, the court, and this was predated me, the court that predated me made allocation of an additional $600,000, I believe, to prep the phase 2 site. Like it's flat, and that's a real consideration as well. While we're talking about recreation, the number one call, and people stop me when I'm at Kroger, Lowe's, wherever, hey, you got a second? We need pickleball. I mean, and I'm not joking.
I've heard it.
And you've heard it. And my proposal to this court in our budget process is that we go on the other side of the tennis courts at Great Crossing and build 4 to 6 pickleball courts. We'll have to build a little bridge because there's a little drainage area behind the courts. But if we just, it's a flat area, and you could put lights on the backside of the tennis courts, lights to light the pickleball possibly. That's something I'm going to ask you all to consider at Great Crossing Park. And I get worn out about pickleball, and y'all are all shaking your head. And the other thing is,
Well, hold on, this guy's not here, not shaking his head.
Don't let me. You're not shaking your head.
No, well, I'm all for pickleball.
Here's
courts.
what I want to say too.
Yeah.
A frisbee golf mini course
There you go.
out there at Great Crossing, very minimal cost. I mean, I'll try to look into that. Did you want to add anything else there, Mr. Wallace?
I want to add that I think in looking at putting the pickleball courts, we also put 2 tennis courts.
Here we go.
Well,
the tennis player.
But here's the justification.
I'm just teasing. You know I'm just teasing.
Scott County High School, Brookings Park, has 6 courts that the court built for Scott County High School use. In Great Crossings, we only have 4, and I think when we did this, we put 4 courts there, and we leveled out that area, which you're referencing, but I also think that we can put 2 tennis courts along with pickleball courts
But
there.
if we go up there and we build those courts ourselves,
Yeah.
we could make them multi-purpose, because the reason we can't put pickleball on the existing courts is because we took USTA money, grant money, and we're not allowed to.
It's $100,000, yeah.
We also have one that's middle schools.
We do.
We're actually, they need that for college courts.
I understand.
So if you look at our state, in our athletic fields and stuff like that, tennis is one that we are kind of in the green.
I agree.
There's enough tennis courts to go around.
I agree, but the tennis coach and the gym teacher, they
They're
believe
here.
that six courts would be what they need.
And there's 4.
When they use them 2 or 3 times a week, a year.
I'm just saying.
I'm saying tennis courts are extremely expensive and extremely maintenance.
Well, they're not teaching tennis at Great Cross. I mean, they are teaching tennis at Great Cross. They're not teaching pickleball.
I'm not doing pickleball for the Red Cross, I'm doing pickleball for all the people that are asking for it.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it for the tennis, the folks who want tennis courts.
David.
We'll finish this in the back part. So on the frisbee golf,
Yeah.
could we possibly talk about where that goes as opposed to Great Crossing, maybe out at Scott County Park or something? Because
Sure.
if we start installing things like that out at Great Crossing and we determine in the future another court says, well, we want to do this, we have a great idea for an amphitheater or something else, then all of a sudden you're starting to tear things back out to.
David, can I share?
Well, certainly.
Well, so JR and I have already been out there in what I would call the unusable areas. We've kind of roughly mapped out where a course could be, and it would be in areas that are not flat. They're not areas that are going to be in potential capital projects in the future. You can implement a tennis court in, I wouldn't call it the bad areas, but I'm sorry, frisbee golf, but the bad areas that we don't use around the dog park and those types of areas, and they're sloped and all that kind of thing. I just haven't presented it yet. I'm trying to get tennis courts out there with pickleball. So,
All right. Any other comments?
I have one other additional one. I'm sorry, Rick. So, last time that we talked about the reservoir property, you had talked about potentially putting a committee together
I have.
with those folks. Where are we at with that?
Kim Rice and I have talked, and I think we need an advisory board, but she has offered to put the reservoir property into the master plan for parks, and that they have the money already allocated, I believe, to do a parks, future master plan, and she's asked if that could be or should be included in that study, essentially. You follow me?
I understand.
So, to be honest with you, I've left that on the back burner. And it needs to be this spring brought back up and moved forward.
Okay, thank you.
I would just be careful about that property being restricted.
Never will I vote to put restricted money.
The land and water grant.
Here, I'm gonna give you $10,000 and you can't do anything.
Never say never, Judge.
You're right, Rick. You're right, Rick.
I got a couple things.
Because in those lines, our cemetery committee, we are trying, because we're gonna run out of space at the cemetery. And there is land and water protected ground there at the old swimming pool. And that needs to be transitioned, and we were trying to transition it out here on another slot that we were looking at. But
That didn't work?
that didn't work because of appraised values were, didn't meet the owner's values that they wanted. But, you know, one other option that we looked at is the FEMA house on Leesburg Road. That 5 acres, it could be designated for rural recreation, and no house should ever go there. So that was the ideal of that swap. Is that what you were going to talk about?
That was one of them.
Yeah, and I would support that.
But that's just a swap.
Yeah.
Of an existing.
Conversion.
Yeah. Is that possible? I mean,
I think.
How far down that?
I think the city has been working on that aspect with land and water. And
so I'll go back to 2 other things. One of them was about the reservoir property. So let me make sure I'm clear, because I've been getting calls. They want to know when the committee or advisory is going to be set up. So is this going to wind up going to Parks and Rec, or is there still going to be an
no, all she was offering is you could have a professional, you know, look at, you know, what could be, you know, as a park, you know, how could that be looked at in the future? You know, walking trails, hiking trails, horseback trails, mountain biking, all those things. You know, could there be?
Plus, you left 1 or 2 out. But
What did I leave out?
Well, you know, the 4-wheelers want to be at the table.
Yeah.
And
Well-
they should be, they're taxpayers. But I'm just saying, they want to be at the table. But my point is, I thought you were going to do an advisory committee and include Parks and Rec, but.
But we'll have an advisory board.
Okay.
Her offer is to put that property into the mix of being looked at by the firm doing the study for the Parks Master Plan, and like making recommendations about, you know, how do you promote it, you know, about looking at it in you know.
So she would be almost gathering information at a
Right.
steering committee or
No
whatever.
matter what, we're going to have an advisory board.
It's probably just a little ways down the pike. I just need to respond to some folks.
Yeah.
And, but that's coming, but a little ways down the
Now, my
pike.
question is, can motorized vehicles, there's 1,400 acres out there, can motorized vehicles mix safely with hikers, bikers, horse riders? That would be a concern.
And I've had that
Is it done
conversation.
anywhere else?
I think
where
it
they're
is.
mixed?
I think it is, but I'm not sure of that. That's why they need to be involved at least in the conversation. Maybe it won't, and they realize that as well, but,
They're not out there right now, right?
no.
No, there's no.
They're forbidden being out there right now.
No motorized vehicles, I don't think.
There's no motorized vehicles.
As far as the recreation aspect, I know we're dropping off.
Are they forbidden? The motors, or vehicles? We don't allow them. Motorized.
There's nothing for them right now,
No.
unless they're dirt bike with
Yeah.
horse there or something.
Right.
There's an association, I think West Virginia's part of it, Eastern Kentucky's part of it. Let me find out what it is when I go into work today, and I'll email it out to you and let you know that it's counties that are part of this association. The setting up trails and all that, because eventually they're trying to link all of them together down the line. So, I can't remember what it's called, but I'll go in and figure it out.
Yeah, one of the guys that I'm talking to, and he's local, actually lives in the district that I serve, but he's talking about those kind of things in eastern Kentucky, where they're marrying some of these different activities.
Part of the problem is on the insurance side, the motorized trails are not, you can't buy insurance. The KCO doesn't provide the insurance. You have to go out and buy it separately. And it's quite expensive.
Well, all that's got to be, discussed. Like I say, I don't know if it can be found where they can have a spot or not. I don't know. In my mind, they just need to be at the table. We have the discussion. We do what we do, whatever that is, at the end of the discussion. The other thing I had, Judge, is I want to go back to broadband real quick. And I know you're aware of this, but I've had a couple of calls from property owners where these, I guess they're subcontractors for, left gates open, taking gates off the hinge. And I think there's been some miscommunication. I know you've been dealing with that. And if you wouldn't mind, just bring that up when you're meeting.
Already brought it up.
I
And Ben Ucelis has that gentleman's number, and he told me he was gonna call the man and try to just express that wasn't their procedures, and
Sure.
and that they were gonna work to make sure everybody knew to follow proper procedures.
Thank you, Judge.
Yeah. Any other? Going once, going twice? Anyone from our audience? With that said, we will conclude our work session. Thank you all.